Good morning, everyone, this early Friday morning. We are here with Andrea and Nicole with the Harris County Department of Education. They are here to answer your questions this morning about back to school, help everyone get ready for this exciting time of the year. So you guys ask your questions in the comments. We are going to let Andrea and Nicole tell us a little bit about themselves and what they do and how they can help.
Okay, good morning. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Andrea Segraves, and I am the Director of the Teaching and Learning Center at the Harris County Department of Education. And my teammate here, Nicole, I'll let her tell you a little bit about herself.
Nicole Shanahan. I'm the Curriculum Director for Mathematics at HCDE. I've been in the classroom since 1984 and administrator as well, and now I help math teachers. And I have 3 daughters of my own, and they've been in 3 different grade bands. One's going off to college now, and I have a first-time middle schooler, 6th grade, little Molly. Shout out. Hey, Molly.
Hi, Molly.
And so we're both educators, but more importantly, most importantly, we're moms. Mm-hmm. And we're here today just to kind of talk through preparing your children for the best school year, the best start to the school year. So we have a few tips to give, and then we'd love to have your questions. So,
and Andrea was also an administrator and a principal, and so
it's a teacher and a principal, and now here
and a mom.
Yes. So I think first, the most important would be that to remember definitely that routines and attitudes towards school are really reflective of kind of how we are as parents. And so getting ourselves into routines as the adult is super important. In thinking through routines, I've thought through kind of the best way to prepare, and I would think that would be 3 different parts of the day. So obviously the morning is super important, which connects to the evening. So getting enough rest, as we all know, but getting those routines in place at least a week. If you're like me, we've kind of been more lax with our schedule in the summer, and so getting back to getting in bed sooner and then getting up sooner so that it's not such a shock for their bodies on the first day. Mm-hmm. But all of those things are connected, and so thinking through the morning, thinking about when you have to leave your house, and then backing up to making sure that you get all of those things prepared.
And breakfast. Right.
Absolutely, breakfast, all of those things that come in the morning, but also I think there's the routine that's not as often talked about when you get home from school. Mm-hmm. And so I think something that teachers would really want parents to know is that looking in their backpack every day is super important, looking through what comes home from school. And then your evening routine. Having that consistency and the predictability for children is really important, and it usually determines how their morning will go, and then how they come to school and how they feel prepared for their day.
And as they get older, it's harder to keep track of those things and that routine at night, like actually going in and making sure they've gone to bed. They're not, watching, Netflix,
Right.
And I would say that just setting expectations of what to expect, that things will change, especially in the secondary world where you have a schedule that you might have even already got at your Greyhound camp, but my phone's going on. But you might get a schedule ahead of time that it might change the next week, and especially in even high school, that you might have a class on your schedule that you've already taken. And so that might be really important to know that they will take care of it. It might take a whole week to get to it. So,
Okay.
You want to, yeah.
So do we have any questions yet? Or
no questions,
okay.
But I would just say, you were kind of talking about the importance of like looking in the backpacks and things like that. So I know most parents, I wouldn't say they completely understand what teachers go through if they're not a teacher, but I think most of us would agree that we want to do whatever we can to help the teachers to make it as easy as possible, from a parenting standpoint, to help these teachers and get them everything they need. So, you've both been in the classroom. So what are some tips you can give to parents to help make things a little easier for the teachers?
I think to remember that everybody is nervous on that first day, even the teachers, even myself last night. I've been to elementary schools for years. I ran an elementary school,
Right.
But just going to meet the teacher, I was nervous too. And so just knowing that and feeling okay with that, and really talking and introducing yourself to the teacher. I think teachers meet so many parents on those meet the teacher nights. So really, and as working moms, I think we can't be there for everything during the school day, but I think there are ways to help teachers that teachers want the working parents to be able to help too. And so I think there are things that you can do. And for me as a teacher, the one thing, just like I said, checking that backpack, looking for the communication from me, and then asking the kids about their day and reading with them at night. More importantly for me than somebody coming and volunteering in my classroom, it was the presence that parents can have in their child's life, and that predictability and consistency of getting the child there in the morning prepared and ready to learn. I feel personally that's the best way that parents can help teachers.
Right.
Obviously there are lots of other ways they can by volunteering and joining the PTA, but I'd say most teachers would appreciate.
They usually have a wish list that you can ask, what's your wish list? But I would just be happy if they could just get their child on time, and maybe not walk them all the way to the door. Maybe say their goodbyes at the front door.
Maybe after the first couple days.
Yeah, right. Right. Especially if they're younger. Of course, the high schoolers will just want them to drop them off.
Yes. Get out of here, Mom.
Right. So, no, those were great. You know, I was more concerned about getting through my checklist of things that they needed. That kind of brings us up to just like school supplies. You know, there's all those lists out there. And, you know, lots of secondary teachers are very particular about their supplies. And so this generic list that might come from, you know, one of the ISDs might not be reflective of what the teacher really wants. In the classroom, they might really want a 3-ring binder versus a spiral and all these things. So sometimes in the secondary world, it's best to wait to see what the teacher has on their syllabus. Otherwise, you're spending twice as much money buying those supplies. And
Whereas I think it's opposite
for elementary, right?
Just because I think they look through those lists and they pick exactly what they want you to have.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
And they want it down to the color of the folder, and it's
Sure.
important. So yeah, that's a good
3 different color
perspective.
folders and
Right.
But yeah, definitely in the secondary world, that might be completely different. So be prepared for that, and just the child knowing that might happen. Just things might change, and that's all right. Having
Now,
this discussion.
this is, I don't know, I mean, I think you guys could probably weigh in on this, but Donald is asking about homework and the amount of homework that students have these days. So what can you guys tell us about that? Or maybe what are your own feelings, since you're so experienced in education, on the amount of homework?
Well, I'm, a math curriculum director, so I can really weigh in, because usually it's math that's a lot. Sometimes they give all evens, page this to this and all evens and things like that, and it seems like a little much. When I talk with teachers, we talk about meaningful homework that they can do independently, that it's not the responsibility of the parent to come back and teach behind the teacher. So they should be independent in that learning and confident enough to go home and practice. And it needs to be meaningful, not just a bunch of rote practice. So I always talk, and maybe that's some conversation you can have with the teacher as you're going into the year, maybe not the first day.
How much homework is it?
Right. This is too much homework. But is it meaningful, and what's the benefit of doing this? And what if my child does it wrong 20 times? How do we undo that? And so there's lots of things you could have, conversations with the teacher, and probably sway them a little if you're, persuasive enough.
And I think, Donald, thanks for your question, first of all. Homework, should be, definitely like Nicole said, something that has already been taught, and it's an opportunity for them to practice. I do think if your child is having trouble with their homework, eliminate the stress and the frustration of kind of trying to argue with your child if you know it one way and you learned it a different way, and they're telling you that their teacher teaches them this way. I would just eliminate that, because I don't think that that's going to increase success for a child. I think talking with the teacher and letting them know, you know, my child came home last night and did not understand this. What can we do together to ensure success? Because this homework assignment, we didn't know how to do it. I mean, I think it's okay to say that to the teacher. I think it's common. I think Nicole knows how to do math in every level. But even as a principal, if you would have asked me to help my son with 6th grade math homework, or even 5th grade, I wouldn't have known how to do it exactly the way the teacher was teaching it. And so knowing that it's okay to ask the teachers for help and let them know, I'd rather a child not practice it wrong at home. Also, I think it's just a balance. I think most teachers would say they do not want students at home frustrated trying to figure something out.
Yeah.
Now, you know, immediately then have that conversation. Immediately send an email to the teacher.
Right.
Don't let that go on for several times.
Right.
Once you notice it happening, then you have that conversation. But if you just want to know our opinion, homework, if you look at any stats, homework does not increase your intelligence. It doesn't increase it. I think Algebra 1 practice helps SAT scores, but there's very little evidence that homework actually improves.
And I think for some parents, it may be your only connection to your child's education. And so if you're not seeing homework and you're worried that your child is not getting what they need at school, I think for so many of us, homework feels like you're helping your child. It helps you to feel connected. I think there are other ways to feel connected, because a lot of times teachers are doing that work during the school day, and so they're front loading that. The child needs to be there to be doing the work, and the teacher's monitoring that as they go. And that's kind of a change from when a lot of parents grew up, because they knew homework every night. And so I think if we could tell parents to kind of trust what teachers are doing, trust that they, if they're not sending homework, it's not because your child's not working hard, and it's not because they're not learning. It's because the hard work is happening at school.
Carol had a question, and I was kind of wondering the same thing. She was wanting to know what she can do as a parent to help her student be successful with studying in that home setting. I know that we deal with that. You know, we have one in elementary and one that's in pre-K, so you've got like a younger sibling running around the house, and you can't tell everyone to be quiet when it's time to study. And so maybe some tips on, maybe it's a quiet location just for homework or studying, things like that. Any tips that you might be able to give Carol and a lot of other parents out there to help with that home setting?
Well, it starts with a routine again. I'm sure she's going to say something similar, but one of my children prefers like just hashing it out on the dining room table after dinner and throwing the books out. Some people prefer being quiet in their rooms. Some like it right when they get home. They like to get it done, boom, boom, boom. And that's a certain type of child that likes to get it out of the way so they can go out and play. Or be, you know, on video games, or do something fun. Hopefully the homework's fun. But everybody's a little bit different, I would say. But having, again, that routine, you know, the routine is the most important. Have an agreement with the child. When do you want to do it? How are we going to get this done? What makes sense? You know, have them come up with it, and then you follow through on making that successful.
Yeah, and that's good to know too. I think some parents try to just set the schedule for the kids, like you're going to come home, you're going to get your homework done before you do anything else, but that may not mesh with their personality, or their, you know, maybe they need a little break. They've been at school all day, so maybe it's time for a break and then to do homework. But yeah, so that's some good advice. I know that a lot of parents struggle with that from the get-go of school.
And sometimes it's because of their own needs. They need to have that done so that the routine at night goes okay for them.
Yeah.
But as the child gets older, they're going to do what they need to do what's best for them.
Right? Well, and you need to think about what is developmentally appropriate for children.
Right.
They've been giving it their all day long at school. So I would venture to say most kids are going to need some kind of mental break, maybe physical activity in between there to refocus on homework. So.
And kind of goes back to Doug's question too, but just they had a 40-hour week already, and then you got all that work at night. It is frustrating. I totally feel Doug's pain. I mean, at my house, that's what we do at night. We do homework.
Something that I think is important, or that I've kind of noticed, like even with elementary students, you think, oh, they're just like, even kindergarten, you know, first grade, they're not doing that much, they're, you know, whatever. And then you get to those first few days of school, and you get home and your kids are just, they're tired, so they're whiny, and, you know, they're just not behaving like they normally do. I think it's important for parents to realize the stress that comes from a day at school, even if it is in kindergarten. I mean, this is a big change for these kids. So, you know, what advice can you give to help parents with that, and sort of remind parents that it is a big deal for them? They might not be doing algebra, but it's stressful for them.
Absolutely. It's remembering that developmentally for children to go and to give it all and to interact with other students, even if it's just those routines that they're learning at the beginning of the year. You're exactly right. They will be exhausted, and it's switching over back from the summer routine to the sleeping patterns, and like we know, 21 days it takes to create habits again. So if all summer they haven't been in that routine, they're going to be exhausted. So yes, absolutely remembering that they're not just trying to have behavior challenges.
Right.
They're probably just doing what their body is telling them. They're exhausted. So
Right.
I'd say extra sleep and extra patience.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Mary Ellen, she was asking, I know we kind of touched on this, but she may have just joined us, as far as when homework should be done. You know, she's asking, should it be done right after school? So maybe just address again the, you know, kind of listening to your child, a student, about when is the best time.
Right. I was saying before that that not every child's the same, and letting them come up with their time that they do it is probably the better choice. And even though in our schedule, so it'd be better if you just get it out of the way.
Right.
But, you know, letting them have a break if they need a break, and that will help with behavior, and having rewards for doing it, and just incentives for being successful and motivating them.
And instead of maybe just the general, when do you want to do your homework, because they may say never, kind of giving them
I
some
have a
choices,
choice? Oh.
giving them a couple of times or
Right.
choices within your routine, so that they feel like they have a voice in that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, ladies, is there anything else that you want to add, or last minute tips to give to these parents as they get ready to head off to another
So I
school
guess
year?
for the secondary parents out there that might watch, I would say just realize that, you know, your child might go in a class of 45 or a class of 5, and that administrators are leveling the classes, they're evening those out, and just to let your child know your schedule could change, and if there's something wrong on it, you don't just rush to the office. There's a form to fill out. Otherwise, there'd be 100 plus children in the office. You know, fill out the form, send it in. It might take a whole week, and your schedule change a weekend. But just knowing the expectations of that would probably, especially if you have a 6th grader or a 9th grader, never experienced something like that, it's probably good to know.
That is good.
And I guess my last piece of advice would just be to match the enthusiasm that you want your children to have for school with your own. Help them to not be nervous, but to be excited. And usually when you model that, they kind of match that. So, and just to have a great school year. And thanks again for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.